Africa, or West Africa primarily, has a lot of natural resources. The natural resources in the developed parts of the world are either diminishing, or there are environmental concerns that go with it. But in order to feed the growing appetite for a growing world, primarily in places like China and India with large populations, there needs to be materials like steel, which is what we ultimately make, and therefore items that make steel. And so one of the last remaining provinces of iron ore is Africa, and West Africa in particular. And so as a company, we've always looked at these regions. And well, the time is not always right, but there are a lot of challenges working in West Africa. But those are some of the areas that we have invested in, and we have had successes. Political risk, worded that way, is a little different. In recent history, there hasn't been that many projects that have been expropriated by government. However, there are a lot of challenges in making projects successful, whether it is the contractors you use, whether it's the training that you impart to the local communities. Those are the challenges, and how you make that happen is essentially a way to mitigate political risk. I'll use an example of what we had to do in Liberia. Is because there wasn't laws and policies that governed mining, or we had to essentially go hand in hand with government. We couldn't always create this program for the government, but we could show them how other places, other countries did, whether it's environmental work or mining regulations, and therefore use that as a model for mitigating political risk in these environments. There is a large perception out there that mining companies are there strictly to make money, and they make millions in mining in West Africa and leave precious little for governments or communities. And that is not correct. There is a large amount of risk in these projects, and so therefore there needs to be an appropriate return. And so a lot of expecting or managing expectations is what we have to do. What we also have to do is show how mining in itself cannot solve all the ills of a country. So largest of which is normally employment. Mining today is very mechanized, does not employ a whole lot of people. But the best what we can do is use that to develop an economy, develop a support structure, develop local content, and train locals, and grow them within the company, so that eventually the company is run by locals. And it's in that way. Those are some of the challenges we have. Those that what we are working towards. And doing so will make this a better, kind of take out some of our hurdles. I don't fully subscribe that investors should be looking only at West Africa. There are positives in West Africa, but there's also a lot of, equal negatives. So companies like ours, and I'm sure other international investors, have a lot of choice out there, whether it is to invest in places like Africa or invest in the developed world, which also has a lot of opportunities with the economy the way it is. I think what what West Africa needs to do is organize themselves, take out some of these stumbling blocks, and then that would make it a little more attractive for investors. Excellent question. I think what happens here is this is a forum where governments can hear what the investors' perceptions are. Companies and investors can hear what are some of the needs of the government, and it therefore gives opportunities on how the three groups can get together, because eventually in what is needed is development, and for development you basically need a public-private partnership because the state in itself cannot manage all the development needs. So conferences such as these help that dialogue, and hopefully down the road it will germinate into some projects.